Isn't weed supposed to feel good? So why do I feel paranoid, sick, and anxious? Anyone who's ever misjudged the strength of cannabis edibles, or taken some on an empty stomach, smoked a strain of weed that was a little too strong, or got in over their heads with cannabis concentrates likely recognizes the feeling of being too high. What is greening out? Greening out is a way to describe the feeling that comes with being too high. It affects everyone a little bit differently, but most people tend to feel nauseous, anxious, and paranoid when greening out. Some people feel so sick when they green out, they sweat heavily and even vomit. And that's pretty rare though. Some researchers have described a condition called cannabis hyperemesis syndrome, which results in severe dehydration. It's something called scromiting, a combination of screaming and vomiting. Cannabis hyperemesis syndrome is still pretty unknown, and a lot more research needs to be done. Greening out can be unintentional, especially with cannabis edibles. Many cannabis edibles are very strong, and they take far longer to take effect than smoking or vaping weed. It's easy to eat a weed gummy, feel nothing because your system is still absorbing it, take another one, and all of a sudden feel like you're on a different planet in all the worst ways. While The Edge would never encourage any form of drug use, we're happy to advise people to be safe and always be careful when using any drug, even legal ones. Is greening out the same as an overdose? No, well, not really. If by overdose you mean taking too much weed and feeling the effects, sure, you can overdose on cannabis. If you're wondering if greening out can be potentially lethal, that's a harder answer. THC, the stuff that gets you high in cannabis, has a very low toxicity. It's nearly impossible for humans to ingest enough THC to be lethal. Unlike nearly every other drug, ingesting too much weed will just make you feel uncomfortable. As bad as greening out can feel, know this, you're not gonna die. However, cannabis can put a lot of strain on your heart and decrease blood pressure, which can be dangerous, especially if you have heart problems. Also, certain forms of cannabis, like edibles and concentrates, can be very dangerous if they fall into the hands of children. And that's because children can have seizures. Cannabis hyperemesis syndrome can cause far more side effects in people with pre-existing conditions. Although again, it's a subject that hasn't been studied in great detail. A lot of cannabis users combine weed with other drugs and medications. While this isn't necessarily fatal, cannabis can amplify the effect of other drugs. Alcohol is a great example. Drinking before using weed can amplify the effects of weed, contributing to the feelings of greening out. Drinking after using weed can minimize the effects of alcohol, which can allow a person to think they're less drunk than they really are. What should I do if I'm greening out? The thing to do is to stay calm. Remember, you're not going to die, you're just in for an unpleasant time. Try to find a quiet, calm place where you can relax. If you're at home, go to bed and sleep it off. Drink some water too. Cannabis can cause intense dry mouth. If your friend is greening out, be a friend. Take them to a quiet, calm place, talk them down. Deep breathing can help a person who's feeling especially anxious and stop them from taking more drugs and alcohol, for sure. Finally, don't drive if you're greening out. Drug driving is every bit as dangerous and stupid as drunk driving. How long does greening out last? These questions always have the same answer. It depends on the person. A person's age, physiology, any other substances they have in their system, and so on, determine how long greening out lasts. Greening out can be the sign of a serious problem with weed. It's possible to get addicted to weed. I've seen it. While cannabis use disorder isn't as dangerous as most other forms of addiction are, it can take over your life like any other mind-altering substance can. If you find yourself greening out regularly, that can be a sign that your cannabis use is out of control. Fortunately, like other forms of substance abuse, cannabis use disorder is treatable. The Edge Treatment Center uses evidence-based, effective techniques that really help people take their lives back from cannabis. You can stop denying yourself your true potential today. Just reach out to the Edge Treatment Center and we'll get a conversation going about cannabis use disorder and more.